Okay, I got asked during a lesson not long ago when I was conducting a lesson with a pupil, and the pupil had had a previous instructor, and it was the first lesson. We actually parked up somewhere at the side of the road. I can't remember where it was. It's irrelevant. And we were talking about. I wanted to see where they were at and what their philosophy was in terms of moving off. Now, the thing that struck me, there was lots of detail. The thing that struck me was the people was talking about the technical side, about how many checks they would make. Talked about a 6-point check. They talked about which moves they look in which order, and then they looked over the shoulder, and then they put a signal on, and we did 2 or 3 of these, and there was something that struck me from it. And the word which I use a lot is routine. And what I mean by that is we went to somewhere different a few minutes later in a completely different environment, and the pupil made exactly the same amount of decisions. They did exactly the same amount of looks, and then they made exactly the same decision to signal. Now, if you think about it logically, every situation that you're into is a complete live situation. Even if you go back around the block a minute later and park up in exactly the same spot that you parked in earlier, you'll never recreate the situation you're in a minute ago. And this is the bit about routine, is people do things in a routine way instead of observing what's in front, assessing the situation and coming up with a plan. So, for example, in terms of the first question I ask myself is the big question, and that is your actions with that vehicle going to affect any other road user? And when we mean my road user, we could mean another vehicle, it could be a pedestrian, it could be a cyclist, it could be somebody on a horse, it could be somebody on a mobility scooter, it could be somebody on even an currently illegal electric scooter. The point I'm making is it can't ever be routine. So we'll just pop those back. So the big question to ask yourself is, are you going to affect anybody moving off? And there's 3 things you can ask yourself. When you move off with the vehicle, you shouldn't make anybody slow down or theoretically speed up, swerve or change direction, or stop. And the last one is swear, but that's another subject for another day. That's the first question you ask yourself. And then from that, which is a skill decision, it's a skill decision because it's a thinking skill. From that, everything draws down. So it might not be a 6-point check. It might be an 8-point check. So I'll give you an example. I hear about 6-point checks. Now, in this situation here, if you say, for example, in the middle of the forest and it's in the middle of a grassed area, and you can see for miles around you, and you're the only car that's there, do you need a 6-point check? It's the question I'm asking you. If the direction of the car is going here, to come back across here, maybe apart from a mirror check, is there any need for a blind spot check over the shoulder? I would say no in that situation that you're currently in. But the opposite side that is there could be a school here and there could be lots of children and people picking up children with their brothers and sisters, and they've got balls and footballs and they're on scooters, and there's ladies with prams talking, and there's lots of movement going on here. And then you see cars here, and then people are crossing the road and they're standing across and they're shouting at each other. That's now a different situation. Hence the word, it's never routine. In this situation, it might not be a 6-point check, it might be a 10 or a 12-point check. And I don't use the word points because point sounds like you're moving your head from one location to the other, when theoretically you should be looking all around you continual, using your focal point and your peripheral vision. So let's go back a step. So in this situation we've got now here, and there's nothing around us now, you're asking yourself the first question: are you going to affect anybody moving off? If the answer is no, then you might not need to do as many observations because of the situation you're in. The next question you might ask yourself is, I got asked by the people who was constantly indicating. And my next logical question was, what are you basing the indicator on? And the answer I got back was, because I was told I always indicate because we're moving off. Now it's quite a logical answer, but if you think about that in more depth, it predisposes that there's somebody about. Now if you've made effective observations and there's nobody about and you've not signalled, and then another time you've made effective observation, seen a road user and then signalled, it would tell me that you must have made effective observations, because sometimes you're indicating to move off when it's required because it would benefit another road user, and other times you're not. And that's about skill, that's about non-routine. So ask yourself the big question before you get into the detail of the mirrors and the observations. Ask yourself the fundamental question is, when you move off, are you affecting anybody where they would slow, swerve or stop? And everything draws back from that question right down to the technical side of the observations in the mirror. I hope that helped.